Good morning, class 9. Today we are going to continue with the chapter Working of Institutions. Now today we have to start from the heading Cabinet Ministers. We have seen last time that there are cabinet ministers, there are ministers of state, and each category of ministers have their own work to do. They have assigned work, they have assigned duties, and they have to look into their work which has been assigned. So now let us begin with the cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers are usually top level leaders of the ruling party or parties who are in charge of the major ministries. We have cabinet ministers at the central level and ministers of state at the state level. Usually the cabinet ministers meet to take decisions in the name of the Council of Ministers. Cabinet is thus the inner ring of the Council of Ministers. It comprises about 20 ministers. Ministers of state with independent charge are usually in charge of smaller ministries. They participate in the cabinet meetings only when specially invited. Ministers of state are attached to and required to assist the cabinet ministers. Since it is not practical for all the ministers to meet regularly and discuss everything, the decisions are taken in cabinet meetings. That is why parliamentary democracy in most countries is often known as cabinet form of government. The cabinet works as a team. The ministers may have different views and opinions, but everyone has to own up to every decision of the cabinet. No minister can openly criticize any decision of the government, even if it is about another ministry or department. Every ministry has secretaries who are civil servants. The secretaries provide the necessary background information to the ministers to take decisions. The cabinet as a team is assisted by the cabinet secretariat. This includes many senior civil servants who try to coordinate the working of the different ministries. Now we will see a very important heading, that is the powers of the Prime Minister. The Constitution does not say very much about the powers of the Prime Minister or the ministers of their relationship with each other. But as the head of the government, the Prime Minister has wide-ranging powers. He chairs cabinet meetings. That means he is the person who heads the cabinet meetings. So underline, this is the first function of the or power of the Prime Minister. He chairs cabinet meetings. Second, he coordinates the work of different departments. His decisions are final in case disagreements arise between departments. Third, he exercises general supervision of different ministries. Fourth, all ministers work under his leadership. Fifth, the Prime Minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He also has the power to dismiss ministers. This will come in the same point. When the Prime Minister quits, the entire ministry quits. So these are the important powers of the Prime Minister. Let us quickly see them once again. He chairs the cabinet meetings. He coordinates the work of different departments. His decisions are final in case disagreements arise between departments. He exercises general supervision of different ministries. All ministers work under his leadership. The Prime Minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He also has the power to dismiss the ministers, and when the Prime Minister quits, the entire ministry quits. So this whole paragraph tells us about the powers of the Prime Minister. Thus, if the cabinet is the most powerful institution in India, within the cabinet, it is the Prime Minister who is the most powerful. The powers of the Prime Minister in all parliamentary democracies of the world have increased so much in recent decades that parliamentary democracies are sometimes seen as the prime ministerial form of government. As political parties have come to play a major role in politics, the Prime Minister controls the cabinet and parliament through the party. The media also contributes to this trend by making politics and elections as a competition between top leaders of parties. In India too, we have seen such a tendency towards the concentration of powers in the hands of the Prime Minister. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, exercised enormous authority because he had great influence over the public. Indira Gandhi was also a very powerful leader compared to her colleagues in the cabinet. Of course, the extent of power wielded by a Prime Minister also depends on the personality of the person holding that position. That means how much power the Prime Minister has, that also depends upon his personality. How much public support is he getting? What kind of a personality does he have? All this determines his power. However, in recent years, the rise of coalition politics has imposed certain constraints on the power of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister of a coalition government cannot take decisions as he likes. What is a coalition government? When no political party gets a clear majority in the Lok Sabha, then two or more parties, they join together to form the government. This is called coalition government. So if it is a coalition government, then the Prime Minister cannot take decisions as he likes. He has to accommodate different groups and factions in his party as well as among alliance partners. Factions means groups of people. So if he has if there is a coalition government, then whenever he has to decide anything, he has to take the opinion of other members of the parties or different parties with which he has formed the coalition. He cannot decide matters single-handedly. He also has to heed to the views and positions of the coalition partners and other parties on whose support the survival of the government depends. Just now, as I said, if it is a coalition government, then when he is deciding the matters, then he has to take the viewpoint of other party members also into consideration who have helped in forming the coalition government. He cannot take the matters individually. He cannot decide the matters individually. Now the President. While the Prime Minister is the head of the government, the President is the head of the state. Here state means the country. Here state does not mean Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, etc. Underline this line. While the Prime Minister is the head of the government, the President is the head of the state. In our political system, the head of the state exercises only nominal powers, although he is the head of the state, but he has limited powers. He has nominal powers. The President of India is like the Queen of Britain, whose functions are to a large extent ceremonial. That means, as in ceremonies or in functions, it appears that the President has so many powers, but actually he is the titular head. The actual powers are exercised by the Prime Minister. The President supervises the overall functioning of the political institutions in the country so that they operate in harmony to achieve the objectives of the state. This is one important function of the President. The President supervises the overall functioning of the political institutions in the country. Whatever the political institutions are doing in the country, the legislature, judiciary, executive, and otherwise also whatever is happening in the country, the President supervises the functioning in the country so that all political institutions function in harmony to achieve the objectives of the country. The President is not elected directly by the people. Remember, the Prime Minister is elected directly by the people because the people vote and choose their leader. But the President is not elected directly by the people. Underline this line. Now we will see how he is elected. The elected members of the parliament, those are called the MPs. The elected members of the parliament and the elected members of the legislative assemblies, that is the MLAs, elect her or him. That means the president is elected by the elected members of the parliament and the elected members of the legislative assemblies, the MPs and the MLAs. A candidate standing for president's post has to get a majority of votes to win the election. This ensures that the president can be seen to represent the entire nation. At the same time, the president can never claim the kind of direct popular mandate that the prime minister can. That means he can't expect to be chosen or elected directly by the people, getting directly votes from the people as the prime minister can get. At the same time, the president can never claim the kind of direct popular mandate that the prime minister can. This ensures that she remains only a nominal executive. She or he, that means the president, whether it's a lady president or a male president, they are only nominal heads of the state. The same is true of the powers of the president. Now we will see how the powers of the president are different from those of the prime minister. Same is true with the powers of the president. If you casually read the constitution, you would think that there is nothing that she cannot do. As I just said, if you start looking into the powers of the president, then you will feel that maybe president has more powers than the prime minister. She or he has the authority to do everything, but that is just on paper. In reality, in actuality, in practice, the prime minister exercises more powers. If you casually read the constitution, you would think that there is nothing that she cannot do. All governmental activities take place in the name of the president. Keep on underlining all these things. These are the powers of the president. The first is all governmental activities, each and every activity of the government, unless and until it is signed by the president, it cannot be considered approved. All governmental activities take place in the name of the president. Second, all laws and major policy decisions of the government are issued in her name. Every law in the country, every policy decision that the government takes, all should have a sanction, should have a signature of the president. Third, all major appointments are made in the name of the president. All major appointments are taken by the only after the signature of the president is there. Which appointments? These includes the appointment of the Chief Justice of India. See how important appointments does the president do. Appointing the Chief Justice of India, the judges of the Supreme Court, the judges of the high courts of the states, the governors of the state, election commissioners, ambassadors to other countries, etc. All these appointments are done only with the signature of the president. All international treaties and agreements are made in the name of the president. So India cannot sign any treaty or agreement unless the president gives his approval. The president is the supreme commander of the defense forces of the state, that is India. The president is also the supreme commander of the defense forces of India. So all these are such important functions of the president. Please learn them. But we should remember that the president exercises all these powers only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Pay attention. The president exercises all these powers only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. The president can ask the Council of Ministers to consider its advice. The president can ask the Council of Ministers to consider its advice. But if the same advice is given again, she is bound to act according to it. If the Council of Ministers gives some advice 2 times, then the president has to follow that advice. If the same advice is given again, she is bound to act according to it. Similarly, a bill passed by the parliament becomes a law only after the president gives assent to it. Unless the president passes a bill and signs it, the bill cannot be declared a law. A bill passed by the parliament becomes a law only after the president gives assent to it. If the president wants, she can delay this for some time. That means making a bill into a law. She can delay this process for some time and send the bill back to the parliament for reconsideration. But if the parliament passes the bill again, then she has to sign it. I am repeating, this is something very, very important. All these come under the powers of the president. If a bill has to become a law, then the president must sign it. The assent of the president, the approval of the president is a must. And he can delay this process of making a bill into a law for some time and send it to the parliament for reconsideration, for thinking about it once again. But if the parliament passes that bill again, then the president has no other option, no other choice but to sign it. So you may wonder, what does the president really do? Can she do anything on her own at all? There is one very important thing she should do on her own. Underline what she can do on her own. Appoint the prime minister. Very, very important. The president is the person who chooses the leader from the majority party and appoints him as the prime minister. When a party or a coalition of parties secures a clear majority in the elections, the president has to appoint the leader of the majority party or the coalition that enjoys the majority support in the Lok Sabha. As I just said, when any party wins with a clear majority, or even they have formed a coalition government, then the leader of that majority party is chosen as the prime minister by the president. This is the very important power which the president has. When no party or coalition gets a majority in the Lok Sabha, the president exercises her discretion. This is another case. If suppose there is no party or there is no coalition getting a majority in the Lok Sabha, then the president will decide the matters according to her judgment or his judgment. The president appoints a leader who, in her opinion, can muster majority support in the Lok Sabha. So in this typical case, the president has the power to appoint the leader which he or she thinks that this can be the leader of the who can get majority support in the Lok Sabha. In such a case, the president can ask the newly appointed prime minister to prove majority support in the Lok Sabha within a specified time. So the person who has been selected by the president, because the president feels that he or she has the capability to get majority support in the Lok Sabha. So that person has to prove his majority support in the Lok Sabha within a limited time. So this is how president has some special powers, and his position in the country is extremely important. Now the judiciary. Another important heading is the judicial system of the country, the judiciary of the country. Let us return on one final time to the story of office memorandum that we started with. This time, let us not recall the story, but imagine how different the story could have been. Remember, the story came to a satisfactory end because the Supreme Court gave a verdict that was accepted by everyone. Imagine what would have happened in the following situations. If there was nothing like a Supreme Court in the country, imagine what kind of a situation the country would have if there is no judicial system, there is no Supreme Court to give any judgment, to decide the disputes, to decide matters. If there was nothing like a Supreme Court in the country, even if there was a Supreme Court, if it had no power to judge actions of the government, suppose it had no powers, there is a Supreme Court but there is no power given to the Supreme Court, then what would have happened? How matters would have been decided? Even if it had the power, if no one trusted the Supreme Court to give a fair verdict, see, everybody in India trusts the judgment of the Supreme Court. We have a firm belief that whatever Supreme Court will decide, the decision will be final and fair. So if suppose the Supreme Court is there, the Supreme Court also has the power to decide matters, but the people don't trust the Supreme Court judgment, then what would have happened? Even if it gave a fair judgment, if those who appealed against the government order did not accept the judgment, suppose the Supreme Court has the power to give the judgment, but the people or a particular party or a group of people, they don't accept the judgment of the Supreme Court, then what? This is why an independent and powerful judiciary is considered essential for democracy. All the courts at different levels in a country put together are called the judiciary. Underline. What is a judiciary? What do you mean by judiciary? All the courts at different levels, Supreme Court at the central level, high courts at the state level, then Lok Adalats in village level, all these courts, when they are put together, they are called as judiciary. The Indian judiciary consists of a Supreme Court for the entire nation, high courts in the state, district courts and the courts at the local level. India has an integrated judiciary. It means the Supreme Court controls the judicial administration in the country. The Supreme Court is the highest court at the central level, and it has been given the power to control the whole judicial system in the country. Its decisions are binding on all other courts in the country. That means the decision given by the Supreme Court is taken as final by all other courts in the country, whether they are high courts or courts at the district level. It can take up any dispute between citizens of the country, between citizens and the government, between two or more state governments, and between governments at the union and state level. So, the Supreme Court decides matters relating to four aspects. First aspect is if there is a dispute between the citizens of the country, if there is a dispute between citizens and the government of the country, if there is a dispute between two or more state governments, suppose there is a dispute between the government of Uttar Pradesh and the government of West Bengal, then the Supreme Court has the right to decide matters. Or if there is a dispute between the governments at the union and the state level. It is the highest court of appeal in the civil and criminal cases. Underline this. The highest court of appeal in India is the Supreme Court. It can hear appeals against the decisions of the high courts. If the people go to the high court and they are not satisfied with the judgment, they can further take their appeal to the Supreme Court, where the matter will be decided. Independence of judiciary means that it is not under the control of the legislature or the executive. In the judiciary in our country is totally free to decide matters. It is not governed by the legislature or the executive. The judges do not act on the direction of the government or according to the wishes of the party in power. The party in power or the government in power has nothing to do with the functioning of the judiciary. The judiciary is totally independent. That is why all modern democracies have courts that are independent of the legislature and the executive. India has achieved this. The judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts are appointed by the President. Please underline. The judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. They are appointed by the President on advice of the Prime Minister and in consultation with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I am reading this again. The judges of the Supreme Court and High Court are appointed by the President on advice of the Prime Minister and in consultation with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Underline this because you should know how the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court are appointed. In practice, it means that the senior judges of the Supreme Court select the new judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts. There is very little scope for interference by the political executive. The senior-most judge of the Supreme Court is usually appointed by the Chief Justice. Underline this also. The senior-most judge of the Supreme Court is usually appointed by the Chief Justice. Once a person is appointed as judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court, it is nearly impossible to remove him or her from that opinion. It is as difficult as removing the President of India. A judge can be removed. Underline. How can a judge of a Supreme Court or a High Court can be removed? A judge can be removed only by an impeachment motion passed separately by 2/3 of the members of the two houses of the parliament. So the procedure is not so easy and simple. Impeachment motion has to be passed and two-third members of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have to vote. Only then the judge can be removed from office or impeached from office. It has never happened in the history of Indian democracy. That means till now there has been no cases of any judge being removed or impeached. The judiciary in India is also one of the most powerful in the world. The Supreme Court and the High Court have the power to interpret the constitution of the country. They can declare invalid any law of the legislature. Underline, these are the powers and functions of the Supreme Court and the High Court, or you can say the judiciary of India. First thing was that the Supreme Court and the High Court have the power to interpret the constitution of the country. That means they will look into the constitution. If they feel that there is any law which is invalid, then it can be declared as an invalid law, but this authority has been given to only the judiciary. They can declare invalid any law of the legislature or the actions of the executive, whether at the union or the state level, if they find such a law or action is against the constitution. Any law which is in the country, if they feel that whether it is at the state level or at the central level, if they feel that the law is against the provisions of the constitution, then it can be declared as invalid law.